So I remember the first time I saw Cory, I was walking up to chemistry. I did not want to be there. It was the last class that we had to finish to graduate. And I was not in the greatest mood. But I saw this guy walk in front of me, and he was texting on his phone like he does now. Still texts. Not much has changed. He was wearing white Nike Shox, cargo shorts, and a t-shirt, green t-shirt, looking down on his phone, walked in right in front of me. Didn't even hold the door open for me. I walked right in, the door like closes, and I walk in, I'm like, all right, this is cool. So I see him, and he was leaning up against the wall. I was like, all right. I was like, he's pretty cute.
But I was sitting against the wall waiting for the class to start, and this pretty girl came up and sat next to me, and you know, I was just like, wow, who's this? And then we went into class, and I spent pretty much the whole class just honestly looking at her and like, wow, she's really pretty.
And I sat like kind of catty corner to him behind. I didn't sit directly next to him, but I saw the back of his head, and he kept looking back at me a lot.
I mean, she was, you know, really pretty, so it's like you got a pretty girl next to you. At first I thought she was one of those, you know, rich Pittsburgh girls, that she was, you know, going to give me a little bit of an attitude, so I wasn't sure exactly how to approach her and how to talk to her. So yeah, I would definitely say I was a little nervous.
I was like, he's cute, but I really wasn't looking, but he was cute and he was staring at me, so I was like, okay, whatever, but I don't want to get involved. So that was my thought process. I guess that's bad, but yeah, he was cute.
She was at a lab, and her computer broke, and so I volunteered to try and fix it, just because she was over there, and I wanted to think that, wow, this guy knows how to fix things. So, you know, I tried to get myself noticed.
One of the girls in my group was like, hey, our computer's broken, and Cory like came out of the middle of nowhere. I'm like, who's that guy? Oh, it's the one staring at me. He comes over and he fixed it, and he left, and I don't even think he said anything, but like he kept looking over like through the benches like at me, like I think just making sure to see if the computer still worked, but he didn't really say anything. Honestly, sounds bad, but I needed a good grade in chemistry, and I knew he was smart. He looked smart. He had a head that looked smart. I don't know, just something about him. So I was like, okay. I know that sounds awful though. I'm saved though. I'm going to heaven, I swear. But yeah, I needed the grade, but I started to like him because he was really nice. Like he would always pay for me, and he was just like really like respectful, always open the doors. You don't see that very often with guys, and he was just very pleasant to talk to, very easy. He was really quiet though. He wouldn't talk very much unless I had to ask him questions. He wouldn't just like talk. So I started to like him, and not because he was buying me food, but because he was really cute. He was really nice, and I really liked hanging out with him.
Honestly, we would eat all the time. It wasn't really a date, but it was kind of us just hanging out. We went to a Chili's. We went bowling one time and we ate there. We would go to the lake and we get hamburgers and ice cream. I mean, essentially wherever we went, you can guarantee that there was going to be food involved, and pretty much paid every time. So it was kind of like mini dates before we were actually dating. Our first date, it was one of those things where, you know, I was finally, you know, after I had talked to her dad, and he said it was okay, and then it went another week or so until she finally said that it was okay, and so we went on our first date at the Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah, and I had finally been like, okay, I'm ready to date. You know, I'm excited, I really like you. And so we would do this thing where we'd leave my house and we would go stand by our car and just like talk for like an hour. We're like, oh, we're gonna go home. Or he was gonna leave, and we'd just stand there and talk even more. And he was like, so you're ready to date? And he popped down on one knee and asked me to be his girlfriend. He's like, will you be my girlfriend? I thought it was the cutest thing ever, but at the same time I'm like, whoa, that's marriage position, like proposal stuff. I'm like, oh man. I was like, of course. But it was really cute, and you know, I was really excited. And then a few days later we made plans to go to the Cheesecake Factory, so that was our first date.
I was really excited. I called up my best friend, who is my best man, and you know, said, hey, I went on this, you know, me and Ainsley just had our first date. This is awesome. You know, I actually had told him probably like 4 days after I met her. This may sound weird, but 4 days after I met her, that I was pretty sure that I was going to marry her. And so just after this first date, I was like, yeah, I'm like, there's no way that I'm not going to marry this girl. Like, she is too amazing. So I actually think that, you know, guys might tend to fall in love a little bit sooner than the girl, because, you know, we kind of are. I thought that we were hinting around the fact that we wanted to go and say it to each other. So I did. You know, I pulled the trigger and said it, and she was not thinking the same thing.
Yes, Cory told me he loved me after 14 days of dating. That's 2 weeks. I freaked out. He, I don't know, he thought I was dropping hints that he wanted me to say it. We would be like, I really like you too. And like, it was kind of like he thought I was alluding to, please tell me you love me, and I really wasn't at all. I wasn't feeling it yet. I really liked him, but the love word was a big word. And he was going home one night and he like whispered it in my ear. I'm like, awkward pause for like a good 5 seconds. I was like, I don't feel the same. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna go home.
So it was definitely one of those, you know, it was awkward for a few days. She's like, did you really mean it? And I really did mean it, but I was like, no, of course not. I didn't mean that. And so then probably another 2 months later, maybe 3 months, I'm not certain how long, she finally was like, you know, of course, like, I think I am now. I think I do love you. And I was like, finally.
I remember sitting at home and I was doing chemistry homework, and I think Cory was at work. And for some reason, I was sitting at the table. I remember like it was yesterday. I was like doing homework. My mom was sitting on the couch, and I looked up. I was like, Mom, is it weird that I think I'm supposed to marry Cory? And she's like, no, that's not weird at all. I was like, really? I was like, because I really feel that way. And she's like, that's good. She's like, you haven't even told him you love him yet, though. I'm like, I know. I'm like, I think he's in love with me. It was like all backwards. I think that was the point I knew. And I know he wasn't gonna tell me he loved me until I said it. So I don't even know if we were dating yet. But Cory was like, so, yeah, I think this was before. He's like, so if I were to propose to you, what would that look like? What would you What would you do? What would you have me do? I'm like, I don't know. Like actually I gave him a scenario. And then I always thought about it. I'm like, I wonder if he remembers that. So we would kind of like make hints and joke and be like, yeah, you know, it'd be cool to get married someday. I don't know. I don't ever remember specific talks about marriage, but I would always throw out hints and be like, oh, I really like that ring. Or like, I told him what I liked. I told him I wanted like princess cut. And one time we went into a store. It kind of freaked me out. We started looking and I got scared and we walked out.
It was maybe November or December that like we actually started talking about it, because we spent a while, I mean, just like perusing through different rings and looking at different kinds of cuts of diamonds. We did that for quite a long time, because I asked her February 9th, and so I mean, I think, you know, right around December it really came like a really, you know, a definite thought in my mind, and just things that we had like brought up, like, yeah, you know, I could definitely see, you know, us getting married. And I would say, well, you know, if I asked you, what would you say? And she would smile and said, yeah, it probably would be yes. And so, you know, that was like, okay, I'm like, well, then I'm in the clear. And so once again, I just had to get it past Paul and see what he thought. Paul and I, we talked for 45 minutes at breakfast before he finally answered. You know, he seemed like he kind of, you know, had me on the edge for almost an hour until he finally said, yeah, I think it'd be okay. Well, the ring process that involved, that was more her mom, Sharon. That was more, you know, going to her saying, okay, what's Ainsley gonna like? I was talking to her best friend in Colorado, asking her, okay, you know, what kind of cut, you know, how big. And so that was a 2-month process until we finally settled on something that was affordable and, you know, that Ainsley it was gonna love, because believe it or not, you know, I had to, you know, it had to be a certain color, and there she wanted diamonds in the band, and the rock had to be a princess cut, and it had to be, you know, so it took probably 2 months until I finally found the right one. Because initially I was gonna do it in May. We were gonna go see her friend in Colorado in May, and I was gonna do it out there on like one of the mountains out there. I don't really know which one. But then, like, once I bought the ring, it was so heavy in my pocket that I just couldn't wait. It was just one day I got it, and then 3 days later I was like, I have to do it now. I can't wait. And so, you know, then I started talking to people at work, talking to friends, and I got some ideas, but then I realized most of our ideas weren't very good. And so I just sat down one day, I thought it all through, and then I put it into action. I brought her, I think, 3 dozen or 2 dozen roses to work, and then I got her a giraffe from the Build-A-Bear workshop. Put that in her car with a little note. I had little notes drawn all over the place. She could only text me like 3 or 4 times total throughout the day. She got home, I had bought her a little, you know, a frog, and I drew her pictures and then all kinds of stuff, and I told her that her golden chariot would be there around like 7 o'clock, because I drove a gold car. And so then I picked her up, and we were talking. I'm not really sure if she knew what was going on.
Before he had started acting really weird. He's being, I don't know, maybe it was more quiet, but he wasn't acting like the Cory that I had known. It was more, I don't know, he's just awkward, I guess. Just very, I don't know, I guess it was just nerve, but he just was weird. It wasn't normal, and I was just like, I wonder what the heck's wrong. Like, I didn't really start to know what was going on until he was like reaching for the ring in his coat when we were in Cheesecake Factory. And I was like,
she probably had an idea of, you know, something big was going to happen. And so once we got to the restaurant, because I took her back where we had our first date, my hands were sweating really bad. I had the ring in my coat pocket, and I'm sitting in the restaurant with my coat on. She's like, "What are you doing? Why don't you just go and take off your coat?" And I was like, "Okay." Then I took it off, and so I knew exactly where it was in my pocket. And then I started talking to her, tell her how much I love her, how much she meant to me, and I was looking for the ring, and she's like, "What are you doing over there?" And I couldn't, like, as I took off my coat, I couldn't find like which pocket it was. So finally I found it. I got down on one knee. I asked her in the restaurant. She fortunately said yes. That was that. I was glad that it was done. I was so nervous, but 2, I was really happy that she said yes.
I cried, and we're in Cheesecake Factory in this little 2-person table. So I'm crying, and I'm like, of course. And I cried for the longest time, and I didn't say yes. So he's like down there on his knee while I'm crying. He's like, "So is that a yes?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, yes, of course, that's a yes."
It's one of those things where, like, you see somebody and it's instantly, I don't care, like, if you're in a great mood or you're in a terrible mood, like, just her face, it just makes you so happy. Like, being with her, I've really never been happier in my whole life. It's I don't know, it's just one of those things where, like, we click so well. Like, we can do anything together, and like, I already know what she's thinking. Like, when she's grumpy, you know, I can tell by her face exactly what's on her mind, you know, when she's happy or when she's sad. I know, it just, like, we're just so close, and the bond between us is so tight that it's just, I don't know, it isn't, being with her, it isn't that it just makes me happy, but it brings so much more to, like, every day.
I just know, because it just makes sense, like, when we're together, not to take words out of Cory's mouth, but it's just like we work, and I just have a peace about it, and I know that it's been ordained by God, like, that He's what put this together. I know that that's what happened, and guys like Cory don't just come into your life every day, and he's such a blessing, and he I guess builds me up, and he is the other piece to the puzzle. He just, I guess in a way, cheesy way, completes me. He just makes everything better, and he's amazing, and it just makes sense. I can't see myself with anyone else. It just works, and I know that God's put us together, and I know that's gonna work no matter what.
I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up, I'm still looking up. Well, I won't give up on us. God knows I'm tough, He knows we got a lot even if the skies get rough, I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up.